time is the delivery of vaccines. They, in fact, explain the majority of this progress in reducing childhood deaths. Since 1980, they've made stunning progress on many diseases. Diphtheria cases are down over 90%, tetanus over 85%, and measles down over 93%. The cost effectiveness of the vaccines is especially important as we look at what aid is most important. We can look back on the smallpox eradication campaign and see that during the 1970s, we spent only $130 million to achieve that feat. Since 1980, the U.S. just by itself has saved $17 billion that would have been spent on vaccination, quarantine, and treatment. So it's a phenomenal return on investment. Now, of course, the statistics tell a very powerful story, but to really understand the impact, we have to zoom in and look at this on a human level. I love graphs. They move me emotionally. But in addition to that, going out and actually going to see the rural areas or the slums, to see the patients and the parents, drives home how important doing this work in the best way we can is. I met Hoshman, who we see here, when I was in a slum outside of Delhi 2 years ago. Now, she's very happy here, but she has polio. Polio is a disease we're very close to eradicating. We're close to making it the second infectious disease that we've gotten rid of. But we still have thousands of cases a year. It's down 99%, but that final 1% is very difficult. And Hoshman is one of those children who got polio. She doesn't know it yet. She doesn't know that she'll be able to go out and play with her friends. She'll never kick a ball. When I thought about what polio's done to her, it really brought home the need to end it. After all, we are very close. When we do, no more children will have to suffer the way she has. And this success will invigorate the whole field of global health, just like eradicating smallpox did. It will be an incredible victory for humanity. It won't be easy, but Melinda and I are optimists. We believe the world is getting better, and if we're impatient about this, if we're smart about it, we can help the world get better a little bit faster. If we can get past the old myth that says there's no good news out of Africa, or that most foreign aid is a waste, and accept a new reality that we've learned how to use this money well, and we know how to empower nations to become self-sufficient, then we'll do what's necessary to make this happen for everyone, and we'll do it quickly. Now, Melinda will talk about another area of childhood health that has emerged as very important.
Thanks so much. I want to echo Bill's gratitude for the honor that you've given us tonight, and also to reiterate our great respect for Senator Fulbright and for his ideas. Bill talked about Senator Fulbright's urge to discard old myths, but there was another Fulbright idea that we want to talk about, and that's actually getting rid of old myths. It's the importance of seeing human beings for who they are, and not seeing human beings as abstractions from country to country. This is the core insight behind the Fulbright program. Educational exchange can turn nations into people, Senator Fulbright said. And why does that matter? Because, as he said, our capacity for decent behavior seems to vary directly with our perception of others as individual humans with human motives and feelings. Human contact can challenge our myths, change our minds, and improve our behavior. This is the moral core of the philanthropy that we do. It's set in these exact same truths. Bill and I believe that all lives have equal value. That means whether you're a child born in Africa or born in America, your life has the same exact value. So when you meet a mother in the developing world, which Bill and I often do, and her child is dying of malaria, you're not sitting there with her thinking, is foreign aid going to waste here? Should we be spending this money? Is Africa in decline? When you're with that mother, everything melts away, and it's all about this child. Can we save this mother's baby? Myth has no place here. It's all reality, the reality of that tiny little beating heart. So for all the sophisticated thinking that shapes Americans' foreign policy, Senator Fulbright argued that what we needed most of all, was empathy. So from my perspective, his insight into empathy rings so true. Empathy breaks down barriers around the world. It changes what we do, and it changes the way we act. Every time I go out and travel to see the work we're doing, I am so struck by what we have in common with the people that I meet. Despite our very different circumstances, they may live on the other side of the world in Bangladesh and I may live in Seattle, but I'll tell you, we are really totally the same and connected. And I'm especially drawn to the mothers in the developing world. They often will invite me into their home and they'll usually sweep the floor and set out a clean mat. And as we sit on the other side of that mat, you can talk to them about what they care about most, and it always, always comes back to their children. How much they love them, how much they're trying to set that child on a path for the future. And I often find myself, as I sit on the opposite side of that mat, thinking, what if this mat was turned? What if I was the woman sitting on the other side of that mat in this developing country? What would I do? What lengths would I go to save my child? When I consider those of us here today compared with the women that I meet when I travel, it's clear to me that we really all want the same thing for our children. But our difference is in our ability to give that to our children. The first thing we want for our children is health. And that's why, as a mother, child health is one of my personal priorities as a co-chair at the Foundation. Every year, nearly 4 million babies die in that first 30 days of life. And 3/4 of those newborns die in the very first week of life. Those babies are born to the poorest of poor in some of the most remote areas, far beyond the reach of a hospital, anything like a hospital. And you might ask yourself, but how can you save millions of babies when their families are spread out in such remote areas, and when the parents practice very traditional, centuries-old traditions when it comes to childbirth? And for years and years, really nothing has changed about those 4 million deaths. And it was easy. It's really easy to just believe, well, nothing could change. But that's a myth. The reality is that most newborns die of a few basic conditions. Some die because of severe infections, because their mothers will wash them right away with a gritty, sandy paste that comes right from their village or in the river. Many of the babies will die of hypothermia because they're exposed to cold air. They're left aside while the mother is tended to at the end of the childbirth period. So some of the solutions are really simple. It's making sure that the umbilical cord is cut in a sanitary way. It's teaching a woman not to wash her baby when it's very first born, to keep that vernix on it and to wrap that baby up and put it on her chest and simply wrap a cloth around it. I can tell you, I was in a village in India this year, and Johns Hopkins has done an amazing piece of research in one village that we're now going to disseminate all over the 2 northern states in India where these childhood deaths occur. They got over half of the babies, newborns, they got the death rate cut in half in this one village in 18 months by literally teaching the moms to keep the babies warm. So you might say to yourself, well, what if the solutions are that simple? It can't be simple to get them to 4 million poor mothers. How are you going to do that? Well, another place I've recently traveled in the last several times, actually in the last couple of years, is Ethiopia, and I saw the answer. Ethiopia has trained 35,000 health workers, women, and they've opened 15,000 clinics. Now, a clinic is about the size of this stage when I talk about a clinic, and they are in some of the most remote parts of Ethiopia in the country. But these workers, these frontline workers as they called, they go out and visit the expecting mothers at home. They deliver medical supplies, and they actually live out in the communities that they serve. And so they understand what motivates women. They understand what the women want and how to help them change. That is the new reality. These new health workers are starting to make a huge difference for the health of families, and it's a big difference. The number of children in Ethiopia who die before the age of 5, that 9 million number that Bill showed up on the graph earlier, that's gone down by more than 25% in the last 10 years. So they're really seeing a decline in their childhood deaths. And it's not just Ethiopia that's benefiting from these health workers. In Malawi, one of the poorest countries in the world, these exact same type of frontline health workers are being deployed, and they've cut childhood deaths in that country by 44% since 1990. In fact, they're on track to reach something called the Millennium Development Goals, which relate to childhood deaths, and it is one of the poorest countries in Africa. So many areas in India, the ones I talked about, are also using these exact same techniques, and if we can keep expanding these approaches, we will save millions of children's lives. Now, this would be transforming, not just for the families, but for the communities and the countries where these children live. When women are confident that they're going to have 2 of their children live into adulthood, one of the most amazing things happened, and this really stunned Bill and me when we first started this work, and that is if a woman knows that 2 of her children will live into adulthood, she will naturally bring down her birth rate because she wants to be able to keep those kids healthy and feed them and get them into school because she's all about planning for the next generation. And so she lifts up her community, she lifts up society, and she lifts up the economy by every single measure. So these impact of these global health investments that Bill and I are talking about are quite literally miraculous. But there is a challenge. The investments that I just spoke of won't continue without foreign aid. And most of the taxpayers who have to support this kind of work really don't know how well it works. So what do we do about that? Well, in March of 1964, when Senator Fulbright delivered his original Old Myths and New Realities speech on the Senate floor, he said, quote, "We are handicapped by politics based on old myths rather than current realities. This divergence is dangerous and unnecessary. Dangerous because it can reduce foreign policy to a fraudulent game of imagery and appearances. Unnecessary because it can be overcome by the determination of men in high office to dispel prevailing misconceptions." Now, perhaps Senator Fulbright refers to men in high office because, as prescient as he was, he didn't realize that one day that college kid in his office from Arkansas who was clipping newspapers would be married to the Secretary of State. So if we're going to make the most of these amazing opportunities to save lives, we're going to have to spread the word about these new realities that Bill and I are speaking about. And the Secretary of State is doing exactly that right now. She's explaining very eloquently how development assistance can help stop terrorism, extremist ideologies, climate change, fight pandemics, build stable economies, ease conflicts, and promote democracy. Now, Bill and I aren't experts in all those areas, and we see that U.S. foreign assistance, especially in the area of global health and development, is a great investment whose return can be measured in saving human lives. If you want fewer children to die, then you have to support this kind of spending. Bill opened with the chart of showing how we have cut childhood deaths over the last 50 years. And we would like to set the goal to cut the number in half again. Not in 50 years. We have our sights set on